alcohol budget's pretty zero, but I've always been pretty minimal, honestly. Even when I was like making six figures in the pharmacy, dude, I was fucking sleeping on the floor and shit on a Japanese futon. Yeah. There's like just a lot of, I just felt so miserable. And like people were like, I don't get it. Why are you so miserable? And it's just like, I think at the end of the day, I was always like a creator. I always wanted to do something more. I was always a bit rebellious, right? But I never got to express that side of me. Just stop and reflect for a bit and just be like, oh shit, do I actually feel this way? Because I feel like most men, the unspoken truth with a lot of men is like, a lot of us are lonely, even though we're not alone, right? And it's really interesting. We feel this loneliness because we're around other people. We're comparing ourselves to other people. If we were by ourselves, we wouldn't feel this loneliness. That's the difference between being alone and loneliness is.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Fit and Frugal podcast. I am your host, Tawni. You can find me on IG at Tawnisaurus. So today I have here with me my friend Kevin. Kevin.
What's up? Usually people are like, hey, introduce yourselves, but like...
I was going
to. I love this. As you were, what are you going to say?
There's going to be so many bloopers today. When did you become a YouTuber?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, when did I become a YouTuber? Oh, man. So, well, first of all, thank you for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. It's kind of funny that we're talking about like fit and frugal type of stuff because, yeah, like you're asking me how I got into YouTube. And for me, I actually always hated being like, so if you don't know me, I actually used to be a pharmacist back in the day. And dude, I freaking hated it so much. And so it wasn't until like I moved into a YouTube house, my friend handed me two books, Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and then also Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, can I swear on this podcast?
Yes.
Holy shit. Like, dude, there's this world that I don't really know about. And that's kind of like what led me to like do YouTube, because I always wanted to do it since the early college days. So that's kind of how I fell into it. So since 2015.
How do you think that's perceived by Asian culture, like with Asian parents or?
Ooh, I still feel like media, like especially like new media with YouTubers and stuff. Like, I don't think our parents like really get it. My mom knows that like I do YouTube and stuff, and I think she might stalk a few of my YouTube videos, which kind of like, I don't know if I want her knowing some of the stuff I say. But my mom's pretty accepting, but like, especially with these days, like I see a lot more, I don't know what the word for it is, maybe Asian representation. Like I'm seeing a lot more these days. So I think it's a lot more accepted. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I first think about YouTube, there's like misrepresentation too, because always the really mainstream Asian culture is like shown, right?
Yeah.
But now I think with more of our style of entrepreneurship, it's also like a direct representation of like a different alternative lifestyle, I think, for Asian culture. Yeah. It's because you did get a college degree. So did I. Yeah. I mean, but neither of us use our college degree.
Not gonna lie, sometimes I feel like the biggest like fucking. Sometimes I feel like I'm ashamed. Like they're like, Kevin, you went through like not only like undergrad, you went through your doctorates, you even practiced for a bit, and now you're just throwing away. But I don't look at it like that. I feel like part of it is like we evolve, we grow, and those skill sets I was using in pharmacy no longer served me. I believe that there was something more for me out there. And whether my parents believe in my YouTube or not, thank God my mom really like was for it. My dad was on the cusp, but when he was about to die, he was like, oh yeah, go do it. But regardless of my parents' approval, at the end of the day, they're going to be dead. I hate to say it, but my mom and dad are going to be dead. And I'm going to be left with the consequences in living this life. And if there's something, if I am going to take a risk, I might as well take a risk right now while I'm younger versus like later in life and stuff, before like kids and all that.
Yeah. What are those skill sets that you feel don't serve you anymore for pharmacy?
It's like stupid shit. It's like corporate bureaucracy and stuff like that, navigating corporate stuff, or knowing these like random laws that you have to know for regulation. But there are a lot of cool skills that I gained from pharmacy, like the art of breaking bad news to people and shit. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Oh,
show me.
So, oh, I'm sorry. We gave your dog the wrong pills, or we gave your child the wrong pill. It's like de-escalating situations like that.
Does that happen?
Yeah, like it's not. I didn't make the mistake. Thank God. Like, thank God I had malpractice while I was practicing. But it does happen. Those things happen. Things like also like things like drug diversion, right? A lot of people go to a pharmacy like from like a script doctor, right? Like they just hand out like narcotics or like promethazine with codeine or like Norco, Adderalls and stuff, and they're just writing for it. It's one of those pill mills. That's what we call it. And how do you break it to someone being like, hey, I can't give this to you because it's illegal? Because there's something called corresponding responsibility, meaning like if they get busted, I get fucking busted too. I'm equally as responsible for that shit. So it's like, how do you de-escalate those situations, right?
So what was the most shady or unethical or questionably moral thing that you did as a pharmacist?
That I did?
That you
Allegedly?
Did. Allegedly. A friend did.
I was actually always pretty by the books. Like I was always very honest with so like a lot of people will lie to their patients. Like be like, oh, we're just out of stock on this, right? Like if there's drug diversion going on. But I just confront it. I'd be like, hey, like I pulled up your name and all that. I noticed all these entries from the other pharmacy. What's going on? So I throw it back onto them, right? And have them answer a question. It's like, unfortunately, like, well, like, I hate to say this, but I can't fill this. Like, I'm legally responsible for this. Here's your script back. You can go to another pharmacy or whatever, but we can't fill it here because it doesn't solve that's the thing. Like, and that's what I find about like entrepreneurship. Like, especially in the world I'm in, like high ticket sales, inbound sales, and all that. It's like, we have to be very, very direct about certain things, but being very tactful about it. Like, if you notice someone's broke, you don't just say, hey, it looks like you don't have any money, right? Like, that's not very tactful. You're more nuanced about it. It's like, hey, it seems like there's something on, you mentioned finances a few times. It seems like there's something on your mind. What's going on, right? Like, it's a more softer way versus like, hey, you're fucking broke. What the fuck?
This is negative $100,000. What's going on?
Yeah. Like, what's going on? Yeah. So those are some of the skills like that, that I used in like pharmacy back in the day.
What's transferable, you feel? Besides the communication, right?
Mostly the tactful communication. But I also think like the other areas that were really applicable were, especially like in my world, the internet marketing world, there's a lack of professional presence, I would say. So like a lot would be like, hey, I'll get to this, never gets done and all that. But for me, like when I say I'm going to get shit done, it's always done. You never have to worry and stuff. And that's the one thing I feel like, I don't even think school can teach, like, I don't even think school is the reason why, but like, you just need a professional demeanor when you're working with patients and stuff. And it's just lacking in this like online space a lot of times too.
Yeah. Because you mentioned that you had to deal with corporate bureaucracy, right? Like, how did you have to unwire your brain from like a W-2 employee to shift into being an entrepreneur, right? Because I feel like W-2 employees are more wired to be a certain way, to run by system, to operation, you know, like just working by the books, like you said.
Yeah, honestly, like if I were to put being a W-2 and I would go back into that lifestyle again, I kind of think of being a W-2 like a mom and like being like controlled by your mom and dad almost, right? Where it's like, what I noticed is that there's a lot of corporate gaslighting. Like everything you do is wrong, no matter what you do, like it's always your fault. That's the vibe that I got in corporate a lot of times. Like, and I worked at multiple corporates too. So it's like, I always got the same feeling, right? But yeah, I think kind of breaking out of that a little bit more. It's like when you become a teenager and maybe into your college years, you're kind of like analyzing things a little bit more objective. And you're just like, maybe they're not always right. Maybe there's a different perspective out there. And like, I think you need to have that voice, especially in entrepreneurship, because you're no longer following anymore. You have to lead, and you have to set out the visions and stuff. And you can't just go based off of other people's opinions all the time.
Yeah.
So that's what I find. How about yourself?
Yeah, because I think that is the two most impactful books most entrepreneurs start with is Rich Dad Poor Dad or any Kiyosaki series.
Yeah.
Of how to get themselves out of the rat race or the matrix. I call it the matrix, but people like the rat race, you know? And start with why is always having an underlying vision behind why you want to do all these things that's outside of money. Yeah. But I think the most biggest reason why you become an entrepreneur is you think you're going to make a lot of money. Technically, like from what I've experienced in the last maybe 5 years of true entrepreneurship, is like you actually don't. And financial instability is the core of being an entrepreneur because your vision and your mission and you're so driven by it that the money isn't something that fuels you, but it's really your passion and like the things that you want to change, the impact that you want to create for others, right? Yeah. You're more fueled by like, I want to do something so that I can help others while I achieve whatever, you know, I set my heart to.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you mentioned that because like speak about vision and mission and all that sort of stuff. Like I recently came back from my friend's mastermind, Vanessa Lau's and stuff. And what's really, really interesting, because I've always kind of struggled with this, like vision and mission until recently. I think as a W-2, like you're always going under someone else's vision and mission. But for the first time, you have to like, I mean, as a W-2, I was really good at executing, like doing everything that's told really, really well. But it's a different skill set to just like being able to sit down and just like really map out like the vision of why does this even matter at all, right? To you personally. And being able to communicate that to, if you have a team and stuff, being able to communicate that too. But it has to start with you first, right? So, yeah, like it's really, really funny because I always struggle with that. And when I went to this event, everybody was like super strong. They had it dialed in. I was like, I think this is the secret why some of these people have been like ultra successful and why like I haven't hit that like level of success that they have quite yet.
The mission and the driven, like there's no clarity in that.
Yeah. It's like what I realized, and this goes back into like things like therapy and self-care. It's like noticing, for example, the things that piss you off, the things that break your heart, the things that really drive you, like the experiences that people are always asking you about, where you can help other people and stuff. And for me, I never did that because I never want to sit in those feelings at all. I felt like I would always like make up some excuse, like I'm too busy for this, like I gotta go do this instead. But in reality, that's the most important thing as like a founder and someone that is driving your business, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think social media, which is kind of ironic that you're a YouTuber and social media is the bread and butter of your business, right? It's being seen and having a social presence that's not, you know, like face-to-face interaction. And I think social media makes it diluted and kind of easy for us to be distracted. It's because you're choosing to go doom scrolling, like you're choosing the unconscious choice. But most people don't realize that that's choosing to not sit in your feelings because it's a lot easier to like pick up your phone. Because I know I do this a lot too back then when I was trying to work and my phone's nearby. If I start getting stressed out over like a little task, like I would distract myself. I'm like, and I'll instantly go to Instagram or something like that. And it's a structure I feel like that our brains wired because it's so easy. It's like an automatic response. It's like every other minute I notice when I'm bored or that task doesn't really fulfill me, I would pick up my phone and what I do. And it's incredible that you kind of bring that up too, because for men, not a lot of men realize that they actually have to sit in their feelings. Because healing and feeling your feelings isn't something that's portrayed in the masculine world as something that you should be doing. Because it's a different light to shine on it. Because you know how like Lewis Howes takes pride in how he's worked on his healing experience and bringing all these stories and how his like sexual abuse like shaped him as an individual, even though he was like really incredibly like talented as a man, like playing sports and doing all these things. But he was just projecting his masculinity in toxic ways. That was really affecting his relationship with women. And until he decided to take on that healing journey, that was when he had like the profound experience to open his heart and receive better relationships in his life, like, you know, his current girlfriend and stuff. So how do you think you taking on your healing journey affect you as an entrepreneur or as a person that's stepping out of that?
You know, it's really interesting because that's not the first comment that someone has said, like, oh, Kevin, you seem like very in touch with your emotions, or very like you notice a lot and you're very self-aware. And by the way, men, dude, that has gotten me the most women ever in my life. Hot take. Back to your question though. Well, I have a follow-up question. Why do you feel like it's so like, why do you feel like so many men don't like talk about this? Why do you feel like this emotional intelligence isn't like prevalent in the manosphere or masculinity?
I just think the community and reaching out isn't well supported. Like there isn't enough men that are willing to sit and be vulnerable with another man and receive like acknowledgement from another man. Like, hey, I'm going through a hard time. Can you just sit and listen to me?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's much harder, I feel like, for men to have those conversations. It's because girls, I guess we sit around, and I think the mainstream light is like we sit around, we talk about our feelings.
Yeah.
Yes and no, but it's much easier is because everything is attached to feelings and, oh, this person did this, I feel this. It's much easier to say than you as a man going out to one of your buddies is like, hey, like this happened to me today and I feel this.
Yeah.
Like I'm upset because this person did this and it triggered me because of whatever. So I just think there's just a lack of support overall of how being vulnerable with one another is viewed, because it's kind of viewed not homophobically, but in a sense that there's not enough trust in that man culture.
No, it's really interesting. Speaking about Simon Sinek, I was watching his podcast episode with Diaries of a CEO. Have you ever seen that?
Stephen Bartlett, yeah.
Yeah. And Simon Sinek was talking about like how one of his like special forces friend or friend in the uniformed forces, and how they say like, hey, I miss you. It's been a while, bro. Like they'll say, I love you and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, that's so interesting. And I think like for me, especially on YouTube, like I talk a lot about like what's on my mind, the emotional vulnerability and stuff like that. And I think it gives a place for a lot of men just to kind of just stop and reflect for a bit and just be like, oh shit, do I actually feel this way? Because I feel like most men, the unspoken truth with a lot of men is like, a lot of us are lonely, even though we're not alone, right? And it's really interesting. We feel this loneliness because we're around other people. We're comparing ourselves to other people. If we were by ourselves, we wouldn't feel this loneliness. That's the difference between being alone and loneliness is that comparison to other people's like situations and stuff a lot of the time. That's from The Courage to Be Disliked, one of my favorite like books, like very controversial. It talks about like denial, trauma, and stuff like that. Alderian psychology, kind of like the stuff that Joe Dispenza talks about too, but like very similar type of things. Tony Robbins, that type of world. But I feel like a lot of men don't actually talk about this, you know, and by talking about it more on the internet, I feel like it gives people a lot of space. And then honestly, it probably saves lives too, because they realize, oh, fuck, maybe I'm not in a good place right now. Maybe I should get some help.
I think what's also not being said is that there's much easier coping mechanism for men that are portrayed as healthy.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's just culture and society norms that even for me, like I know that I was abusing alcohol, right? It's just to numb. It's just to cope with whatever negative feelings. It's just if I'm triggered, I'll grab a drink or whatever. But I would say like men's culture, it's normal to grab a beer with your friend. It's normal to go watch the game. It's normal to, just sit around for a couple hours and literally talk about nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Not feelings or not goals or not whatever, but just, oh, that chick, this and that, right? Like I'm pretty much butchering my man card right now, but I think it's much easier for it to be glossed over because it's such a normal thing for dudes to do, is to sit around and literally talk about nothing. It's not like, hey, how can I help you achieve your goal better? Hey, what's your goal this month? Like, if you want to make more money, let's make more money.
Yeah.
But it's just sitting around kind of like wasting the time because they're both coping together, I feel like. And because it's such a numbing and it's such like a comforting feeling to just, you know, shoot the shit, right? Because it is comforting. You go out, you grab a beer, you don't really think about anything. But again, you're numbing yourself from feeling those feelings that if you were to be alone with your feelings, you would be like, why do I feel bad today? Like, why did that cashier mentioning this word like make me feel weird?
Yeah.
You know?
It's interesting. That's why I feel like so strongly about like positive habits, like things like jujitsu, because you'll slap hands, fucking choke each other and shit, right? But then like sometimes you have those moments where you just talk off the mat, be like, hey, how's everything going with blah, 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 your wife, your kids and stuff? How are you feeling? Right? Or like when we're not on the mat, we'll be like, hey, you want to see the UFC fight tonight? We'll go out for a UFC fight, watch stuff, talk about jujitsu. But even like positive habits like that, but even with this new content world, like the other day I reposted a story about like, it was a story about like no one will remember the late nights that you worked except your kids, right? 20 years from now or something like that. And one of my friends, jujitsu bro, he was like, dude, my dad was like that. And it just opens up these conversations, like when you just talk about stuff. And like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like sometimes I wonder in the back of my head, am I oversharing too much? Am I doing all that? But then I'm just like, fuck it. This is the shit that I want that's on the internet. This is stuff that's important for me. And it's important for me to be able to go back and just be like, oh, I was actually feeling this at one point. If it even just helps one person, it's worth it, you know? Fuck it, who cares? You know?
Yeah. Do you feel that you're more emotionally regulated now is because you are aware of your own feelings and like, you know how when we talked about how our parents raise us, is most Asian kids weren't raised with emotional intelligence. They were raised not with words with affirmation, maybe gifts, if anything. It's mostly through foods. It's mostly through acts of service, but in a really scornful, joking, banter way. Like, I don't think our parents ever really sat down and be like, hey, I love you. You're doing a great job. I'm proud of you, right? Because that's probably the phrases that we never really grow up hearing. It's just something that, you know, I kind of ask myself, like, would I be happy hearing it now or would I not be able to receive it? It also comes from a receivership because I don't think I would be comfortable sitting down and my mom telling me those things right now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because like, especially growing up in that like Asian household type of thing, it's just like, I don't know, we've been conditioned so long for it to be a certain way. And then when I have this story that I tell on my YouTube channel all the time. It's like I went to this woo-woo like personal development thing. It was super culty, by the way.
Woo-woo is awesome.
It was super.
Tell me how woo-woo it is first.
It was all woo-woo is probably like 6 out of 10. 5 out of 10. Okay. It wasn't super woo, but it was culty as fuck. That's what I remember.
What is culty as fuck?
Like, dude, it was almost like one of those MLM things where they were like, bring a friend, blah, 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 like drink from the fucking Kool-Aid shit, right?
Now I know not to answer your text when you say, hey, you want to go to this thing
you want to go to this event? You know, like I'm not going to tell you about it. But I went there like when I was like, I think 29, right? Like, yeah, I went there when I was 29. And what was really crazy was like, there was this one exercise. I can't remember it, but I was bawling my eyes out. And then all of a sudden, like that third eye shit, like I had this crazy moment where it was like, it went all white. And it was like, something was like, you need to talk to your dad and you need to repair that relationship with your father. So after I cried my ass off at that event, I pick up the phone, I call my dad, and I was like, hey dad, I don't know why, like something just told me just to call you, but I want to say like, I know that we never gotten along all these years, but going forward, I don't know how much longer I have you. And going forward, I just want to have a better relationship with you. And then I was like, I just want to say like, I love you, dad. And then my butt cheeks start clenching and stuff because I'm just like, oh my God, this is so fucking awkward. And then my dad, yeah, it's like, you know, have you ever had those moments where you say something and you're like, oh fuck.
I don't look like that,
dude. This is like what's going in my mind. Obviously, physically, I wasn't doing that, but this is what's going in my mind. And then my dad was like, I love you too. And the crazy thing is like, I think 7 months later, my dad passed away.
Oh, really?
It was pretty fucking trippy. But during that summer, we went to Bermuda. I roomed with him. I got to know my dad a little bit better. And it's like, the truth is we can like, as uncomfortable as it feels, as those butt clenching moments sometimes, like we have the ability to change those things. And especially after my dad died, I made a stronger effort to have a better relationship with my mom, because I didn't treat her that well, like early in time. Because I think it's a bit about like, my dad was always kind of like the aggressor in the family, and my mom, like, she's a very kind soul, but she couldn't like really protect me. And I held resentment toward that. I think that's what I didn't realize at the time, but now I realize it now. I'm like, it wasn't her fault. Like, you know, like she did the best that she could given the circumstances. And I'm just like trying to have a better relationship with her. I tell her what I'm feeling. I tell her what I'm going through. And our relationship is really, really great. So I think we can change that dynamic if we put intention to it.
Yeah, I think I had the same kind of household growing up too, like with my stepdad too. And I always blamed my mom.
Yeah.
It's like, you're supposed to be my protector. But I didn't know that at the time, like she's also in her masculine too. It's because she was the provider. She was a survivor, right? The trauma survivor. Because I was raised mainly by a single mom, like most of my life with all her traumatic stuff. So I don't know the correct term is like, I think I was like parentified, right? Like I had to be the parent to her, is because she was emotionally unaware of herself and her own regulation. So I think starting like 8, 9 years old, parentification like became a thing. That's what I learned in therapy, is that they're like, yeah, like it isn't necessarily good that you're mature for your age or whatever. It's because your childhood was taken away from you at a young age. It's because you had to become the parent to your parent.
Yeah.
And I kind of lost that sense of like childhood and all of that thing, you know, like growing up that you're supposed to have. They're like, hey, did you see this movies? Like when, you know, all the Disney movies, I'm like, I never had any of that.
Yeah.
You know, like I never had that kind of childhood that like people remember.
Yeah.
Right. It's because most of my memories kind of gone to from traumatic experiences on my own and with my mom. So I think after a certain age, like I kind of went back with my mom, like, hey, I want to have a better relationship. But she kind of goes back to her pattern. Like we'll be good for a few weeks where she understands boundaries. And she just slowly gets enmeshed again into her own pattern of like over giving and over bleeding into the boundary that we've set that makes that relationship healthy.
Yeah.
You know, so I appreciate you sharing the time thing, because that was the timing thing for me too. It's like, hey, because they say like once your parents get older, once you get to a certain age, it's not how many years you have left with your parents, but how many times left that you're going to see them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true.
So that moment kind of changed for me too.
When your mom like reverts back, do any feelings of resentment come up for you at all?
It does.
Yeah.
It becomes like more of a guilty feeling, is because I blame myself. It's like I thought I was doing a good job in terms of establishing the boundary of my needs. Finally, it's because I never had needs as a child, because all my feelings were validated by how good of an overachiever or how good I was at performing this like golden child role, because I'm an only child too. So of how good of a job I am doing to pretend like I'm somebody I'm not, right? And that was most of my teens, most of my 20s or whatever. I was never able to live my own life. I had to live under the lens of like this perfect portrayal of like what, you know, like a good girl should be or whatever, which is a whole epidemic of, I feel like, people-pleasing patterns that I picked up, you know, from childhood that I didn't realize I had, was because my validation of self came through others. And I never had like a established identity of who I really was, because I was just living for other people and like just reliving this image of what I think I should be, when really like I had no fucking clue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, sorry, I'm hijacking your podcast.
Friend zone. Friend zone.
Friend zone podcast. Do you feel like this, your, I guess, relationship with your mom and stuff, and like, I don't know anything about your biological dad or anything like that, but do you feel like that's kind of affected your relationship life at all? And,
it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were divorced when I was 4. That's what I know, right? And I think in my 20s, I had a chance to meet him, but I was like going through shit, and I was like, no, I refuse. And all of this stuff is because I had a bad relationship with my stepdad too.
Okay.
So I didn't have a good relationship with myself. So I think throughout my relationships that I was more of a trauma attachment to my previous relationships, because it stems out of like loneliness and trying to be in a relationship for the longevity, but not the health. Like I was in like 2 pretty long-term relationships to where people are like, oh, like you're in a 3.5 and like a 7-ish year relationship.
Yeah.
Technically 3, you know?
Yeah.
oh, like you're doing a great job or whatever. I just stayed in it, but I wasn't really present for the relationship because it wasn't really healthy because I wasn't healthy. So, so I stayed in it and it affected me is because that I feel like the relationship with my mom is because, she's with my stepdad or whatever. And like, however their relationship is, it's length.
Yeah.
And Asian parents has a different way of saying relationship. Like their loyalty is different than how we view loyalty. Right? It's because they're like, it's family, it's blood and all this stuff. But really, they don't understand it's more attachment than it is, right? It's a different lens on being a resilient woman. It's like just because you can endure more or you can tolerate more abuse or more negative toxic patterns doesn't mean that you should. But I don't think women, especially Asian women, have that understanding or that education to understand that you can actually physically leave, pick up your things and go and start over.
Yeah.
So
it's almost kind of like a fight response to like, oh, I don't want to end up like mom and dad, like kind of subconsciously. Okay. Very interesting.
I think that was my pattern too. It's like, I'm staying because this is all I know. Doesn't mean it's good. It's better, but it's not the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that kind of affected how I chose like previous relationships and why I stayed in them is because I wasn't fully in my conscious. Like I wasn't really in my power to choose to be in that relationship. I was just kind of there, right? Because it was an autopilot response. I was just kind of present, like, in my body, but I wasn't really in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
How like even childhood trauma has such a profound impact on how you choose your relational partner and how that impacts, like, I think all aspects of my relationships too.
Yeah.
Like all my friendships and all of these people that was in my circle or whatever I called my circle back then was like, I don't think it has really true values to how I choose my friends now and the people that should stay in my life.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I think about like my dad was kind of avoidant attachment style. And I'd be like, why am I attracted to all these fucking ABGs and shit? Because they're all avoidant, right? Maybe I'm trying to seek approval from my dad to these ABGs, you know?
Avoidant attachment. Worked on it for years.
But I think about that. And then when I actually had someone who's like pretty secure, right? I was like, I don't want this. And then
like,
when
this is boring.
This is kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
I'm not attracted to it. And then like when she started leaving, I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna lose her. I need to fight for it and stuff. And just kind of like what you were explaining, like I was just trying to fight to keep that relationship, honestly. So
yeah, but you don't realize, like, do I even want this relationship, or you were just trying to get it just to have it?
Are you in love with the relation, like the actual person, or are you in love with the actual idea of a relationship?
Yeah.
And
like, the idea of being in a relationship versus the actual person in front of you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a really hard pill to swallow when I woke up one morning. I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
Where the fuck were you?
Not in my body, really. But yeah, so I think that's like a really interesting way. It's because how what we talked about too is it's kind of hard dating other people that are either an entrepreneur or not because of the schedule, the differences on how our days look like. It's not always the same because W-2s is the 9 to 5. You come home, you do the same thing, you watch TV, you eat dinner, go to sleep,
Yeah.
But how has that becoming like a YouTuber changed your dating life?
I'll tell you this, like, I don't think I've ever publicly talked about this before. But recently I've been just having thoughts because you're talking about the ups and downs of revenue and stuff like that. And especially when you suddenly decide, you know what, I'm no longer aligned to this business model anymore. I'm going to fire all my clients and just go down the like pure YouTube route. Like your revenue definitely does take a hit. And I have these moments, like whenever I notice, like I have these very self-conscious moments. Maybe it's because our Asian upbringing or anything like that. But like I have these moments where I'm like, shit. Like, would a girl even want me at this point? Because like, that's the traditional role of a masculine is to like provide and stuff. And I'm like, what kind of woman would want someone like me where like, sometimes I'm like, fuck, am I going to sleep on like Skid Row in LA, dog? Like, what the fuck? Like sometimes I have those moments, right? And I know like I'm smart enough to figure it out, but it's something that's always lingering in the back of my mind and something I feel self-conscious about. But then like when I meet another entrepreneurial female, which is I don't want to say rare, but definitely not as common as a entrepreneur bro or a ClickFunnels bro. it's just like a lot, I don't know, there's just a better, easier understanding, right? And like, sometimes I'm wondering, like, even with my last ex, she's very supportive. She's a W-2, she's a nurse and all that. She would always be there for me, but I was like, does this bitch really love me? Like, that's what I'm thinking in my head, dude. This bitch really love me? And I don't doubt that she did, but like, for an entrepreneurial, like, female, like, I'm like, she kind of gets it. She understands like exactly what I'm going through. And like, I don't feel judged, you know? But that judgment is not other people I meet. That's my own like interpretation of it. And those are some of the thoughts I've been really, really thinking. And probably one of the reasons why I've just avoided dating a little bit too.
To figure yourself out. Yeah, I think as a man too, you do attach your identity to your achievements, especially money, because that's the most tangible thing you can provide. And that is the most false and misleading way to show stability and security in a relationship, is because I feel like a lot of other girls do look for security in a relationship through financial means, right?
Yeah.
Is because automatically they're going to be like, oh, he makes 6 figures. All right, cool. Yeah. Right? Because we were talking about, like, we both make healthy 6 figures, and why are we not happy? Is because we weren't doing anything fulfilling.
Yeah.
It's because we were miserable as shit. And it's like, what is all this money going to fix, or what is it going to do? I mean, it pays for the therapy bills, but...
It does, yeah. Therapy is really fucking expensive, by the way. Like,
therapy is very expensive.
But it's like, people don't realize, like, dude, when I was practicing pharmacy, like, other people wouldn't get it, but I felt like I want to commit seppuku every single fucking day after work, dude. I hated it. And it was... Seppuku is suicide? It's like the fucking Japanese... you don't know the Japanese disembowelment? Like... Yeah. So back, history lesson, back during the samurai days, like when they're about to be captured or about to lose a battle, they didn't want to dishonor their clan. So they fucking take their sword, jab it in them, and disembowel themselves. And that's how they go out.
Fucking raw shit.
Yeah. Of course it's Japanese, dude. They're so intense. It's Japanese. They're so fucking intense.
Like, look at all of our really nice Zen peaceful art, and then our fucking suicidal method.
Pretty much. They would probably commit suicide in the Zen garden.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, on a serious note, there's like just a lot of, I just felt so miserable. And like, people are like, I don't get it. Why are you so miserable? And it's just like, I think at the end of the day, I was always like a creator. I always wanted to do something more. I was always a bit rebellious, right? But I never got to express that side of me. But through YouTube, I get to do that, you know?
Yeah, I do understand that completely, because I'm trying to understand, like, coming from your shoes, because people are looking at you like this is the Asian epitome of what you should be. It's a pharmacist, doctor, lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Engineer doesn't really count. I don't really know a lot of Asian engineers.
You don't?
I don't.
Oh, there's a lot, yeah.
Well, software engineer, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
And I think that always is kind of profound. Like when you hear someone else has like suicidal thoughts as well, is because the ideation is different than actually crafting it, because you're miserable in your W-2.
Yeah.
And people don't correlate the two things. Right? Because they're like, oh, he has a good job, he has money. Like, why should he be sad?
Exactly.
You know?
But that's because they're so low on the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
And what's really crazy, what was really chilling, that same year where I went to the culty thing.
The culty thing?
Yeah. You know, I had a pharmacy supervisor. That was the position that everyone wanted, because you didn't have to be like in the pharmacy, you just managed the pharmacies. That guy committed suicide, dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That guy committed suicide, and he was like, at work, he was always super happy, super jolly and shit. I'm like, fuck, you really don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know?
I think going back to Maslow's, I think most people that have good jobs that make 6 figures plus or whatever, they don't understand that they're operating on the basic level of Maslow's. I don't think a lot of people are aware of like the basic levels, which is the survival level, right? They're stuck on autopilot. They only know how to make money to keep themselves sheltered, right? Food, sex, and what are the basic ones? Like basic needs, like, I just remember shelter, food, and sex.
Because that's the only things you care about.
That's the 3 things I care about. But they don't really understand that it's a little bit higher than that, right? Like you go up and it's safety. Like what is safety to you? A lot of it is financial security. That's safety. But safety is actually feeling safe where you live, like having ownership of where you live, owning a house or whatever. But most people, they're like, oh, I'll work for the rest of my life. And then I think the third level, what is that? Belonging.
Belonging and love.
Community.
Yeah. I can't remember it. I just remember the top one is
self-actualization.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you've self-actualized since you quit your job to become an entrepreneur?
I think I'm on the path of self-actualization.
Self-esteem is the fourth one.
Oh, it is?
I think it's the development of self and understanding like yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes like for me, I I always tell people like sometimes you gotta just suck a dick in life to just like ascend. Right? Like
how many dicks have you sucked?
Too many. I don't even think I've did only fans, guys. Anyways, like I think a lot of times too, that like with W-2s, they think because like in a W-2 job, everything's so linear. Like you get this position, then move to this position. But entrepreneurship, it's like ups and downs. Like, yeah, can I do high ticket closing for the rest of my life? Sure. And make a lot of money? Yeah, I could. But that's not. I'm still trading time for money for that. There's like pros and cons, but I feel like there's something more for me out there just intrinsically. And I'm just like, okay, if I want to acquire this other skill set, I might have to like I can't perform at that, like at that standard all the time, right? I might have to like dip back down just to like suck a dick, like, and like try to, and have to start over again. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think like too many people sometimes like, this is actually like a strong belief of mine where like so many people are so focused on the end outcome, but they neglect the importance of like skill acquisition, right? So when I was in pharmacy, I learned how to be professional and all that. I learned some soft skills. Then I went into like copywriting. I learned basic marketing and stuff. And then I learned like how to sell and stuff. And now like, and on my YouTube channel, I was learning storytelling for the first few years. But now I'm like learning how to treat YouTube as like a business right now and take all those skills and apply it to a business. So of course I got to suck a dick. I can't be doing high ticket closing and like running multiple businesses at once by myself, right? If I had a team, that's not a problem. I do have like a team and stuff like for certain clients, but like, dude, you have to suck a dick sometimes. Yeah. That's okay if you have to suck a dick.
You've been saying that a lot. Hot take. It sounds like you want to suck a dick or something.
That's how you stay fit and frugal, baby.
Is that how you get your muscles?
That's how you that's how you like burn extra calories and make sure you're on your macros. Log in MyFitnessPal after.
Tick part one. Tick number two.
Yep, that's right.
No, I think that's the biggest part that people, I feel like they glamorize how fun like being your own boss is. But there's some days to where like how we talked about a lot is like your mental health is because you start reflecting on your contribution to the business and of yourself, but you kind of forget who you are in the process.
Yeah.
And skill acquisition to me is just understanding the process, right? Like how many things it actually takes for you to do one thing. It's like 19 different skills for you to build one business, not just do a job and get paid. You know?
I don't think I brought it up on our podcast, but I actually like my friend Vanessa Lau's coach. His name is George Bryant. I was chilling with him the other weekend at a hotel and we were just catching up. And he brought up this quote. Like, have you ever heard of Jack of all trades is like
masters of none?
Yeah.
Yep.
But do you know that's not the full quote?
What is it?
It's like Jack of all trades. I can't remember the first part, but the second part is like better than a master of one. Better. If you Google that shit up, like I'm like, that was the most fucking important part. Yeah. Why didn't anybody tell us that? But it goes back to what you're saying, right? Like you have to learn so many different skills, especially like when you start scaling out your business, learning how to like manage people and all that sort of stuff too. Like there's so many skills required. And if you're leading people, you have to have a basic understanding of like that operation of the business too, right? If you're the founder or CEO, whatever you want to call yourself, right? And it's like, I think sometimes we just glamorize a 22-year-old like internet startup bro, you know, like, but there's a lot of skills that we need to like, it's okay if it takes a long time, right? Skill acquisition is number one.
Yeah. I think even like where you're going with YouTube and how you're going to treat it as a business, because you are a boss of one, an employee of yourself, right? So
I have like a small team.
You have a small team,
but it's like majority me. Like I'm like, I have to lead. I'm like the main content like director. I'm like, we talk about this on my channel and stuff. And I have like strategists like come in too. I'll listen to them, but ultimately it's up to me, right? Because I'm just like, that's fucking stupid as shit. We're not doing that, right? Like I have to lead the vision, right? And that's my responsibility. But yeah, that's why I'm saying like all those important things like being able to manage a pharmacy, being able to manage a sales. Dude, sales teams are the fucking hardest to manage, by the way, because they're all like expressive personalities, right? Because
they're commission driven?
They're commission driven, but they're just unorganized. Remember how I was talking about that lack of professionalism? Next time, like, dude, for some reason, tech stacks and sales people do not get along very well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't take notes. They don't do any of the sort of stuff. I'm like, what the fuck? But they're really great salespeople sometimes, you know? But they won't move their deals over to be like, hey, I actually closed this deal and pay me out on this commission. They don't even do that sometimes. I'm like, what the fuck is happening with all these things? But my main point is like, all those previous experiences stack up to this moment where I can think about like, I know how to storytell. Like I know the sales aspect of like what really matters to people. I know how to like, I know all these aspects for the YouTube. It makes it way more easier. Like that tactful communication that I was talking about too, right? Rather than just being like, what the fuck, this video isn't done. Being like, hey, I noticed like this video wasn't done. Well, like, dude, love an update. What's going on, right? Do you need any support? Is there any way that I can help? Right? What can I do to make your job easier? I say that to my team all the time, right? Because I'm always thinking about, okay, are there any systems that we need to break out? Like that I need to bring in? How do I reduce the friction of the process of our overall team to make their lives easier? Things like that.
Yeah, because now that you're not doing inbound sales, how do you budget everything with your business and personal spending? Like, what's important to you? Do you stop going out? Do you stop? You don't even drink, so your bar tabs is zero.
Yeah, my alcohol budget's pretty zero, but I've always been pretty minimal, honestly. Even when I was like making 6 figures in the pharmacy, dude, I was fucking sleeping on the floor and shit on a Japanese futon. Yeah, like my friends can vouch for me, right? I was always doing that. I keep everything very, very minimal, and I believe in that because like, you just don't know how shit's going to go down. And it's like, not to say I can't afford things, but it's just like, I like to be very, very mindful, right? And just be like, okay, is this a real essential right now? Things like that. But it's really, really fun. Like, you know how people talk about like real estate and acquiring assets and stuff. The way I look at like the YouTube landscape is like, if I can do this really, really well, that's an asset. At zero, like not zero acquisition, but pretty damn close to zero sometimes, right? If I do everything myself, it's pretty much zero. If I hire out people, acquisition costs maybe like $100, $200 for a small asset that's bringing in like $1,000 per month. Not bad, right? So, yeah, but yeah, I just like right now you're catching me at like, this is my first month going full time into YouTube at the moment.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah, it's like really crazy. Yeah.
So in a bit, we can do a follow-up.
I'll be fucking homeless and be like, Tawni.
I have an air mattress. It's okay, I won't let you sleep on the floor, but I have an air mattress. I sleep with my dog, but you know.
That's perfect.
She might like you, she might not. I don't know.
You know, that's perfect.
It's a risk that you're going to have to take entering our house.
Yeah. But that's the hard part that I was talking about. Like, I had my dream clients come up to me recently and be like, hey, Kevin, I really want to work with you and stuff. You know how hard that is? Like, hey, I'm actually pivoting in the business right now. I'm not doing it anymore, right? Or sometimes I'll get really crafty and be like, I can assemble a team. Are you cool with that? Right? And they're like, oh yeah, let's do it. And then I'll bake myself into a deal in somehow, some way, right?
Yeah.
But it still takes up my time, and I have to be very mindful of that because I'm in a creative space where like things aren't black and white. It takes like mental power to be like, oh, make this entertaining or have a certain eye for it. But I can't be exhausted and like doing that shit at the same time.
So what is your vision for your YouTube channel now?
So something that I feel very strongly about, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but it's like, I call it the BBC vision. big, bold creators, bringing them together.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe strongly in that because like so many of us creators, like we feel alone, and a lot of the times they're struggling with like monetization. And that's where all the inbound sales, high ticket closing comes into play. Cause like a lot of these people, they don't have offers, right? If you have an offer, like it makes your life so much easier. You can monetize other ways. Then you don't have to worry about stupid fucking brand deals ruining your videos or anything like that. You can actually like create straight from the heart, and like you don't have to worry about like every video has to make money. It doesn't. Sometimes like things are just for the brand, just to build a relationship with people. And that's something that's really important to me. So going forward, like I put all my like courses out there for free. I do like these ultimate reviews of different products, affiliate links. My vision is really zero cost education, and then charging only for the relationships, like through masterminds and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that BBC is going to stick because it's sticking now.
Yeah. Big bull creators together. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there's a lack of that in the space too with monetization. Is everyone wants to be a creator. Everyone wants to be seen, right? On social media. Do you feel that since you became a YouTuber, you feel more seen and understood and heard with your audiences?
Yeah, I feel so. I feel like that's the case. You know, like I feel that, I don't know, there's something about it, right? Like getting comments on the back end and just being like, this video changed my life, or I can't believe that you dropped this out for free. Like, thank you so much, Kevin. Like, is that thing? But also like internally, like I think about it for them, but then for me, it's like, it's just the right fucking thing to do. Like in a world where like, especially my world of like the ClickFunnels bros and like the high ticket closing world, with all these like people promising the dream without you having to lift a single finger, right? That's like everybody's webinar pretty much. It's like, we're not helping anyone with that. And they're like, kind of like putting the education on a pedestal. While education is important, we know it's not everything. That's why people join masterminds. That's why people like hire coaches to leverage the experience, and nothing replaces the experience at the end of the day. Education is just the first step. And so that's why I decided to just like pivot away from all that. And this is where like I started thinking like, what if I were to build a business that was zero cost to consumers, right? What would that look like? And that's where I came up to like, okay, the education will be like zero cost to consumers, but I'm going to monetize the fuck out of the ads on it. I'm going to do these ultimate reviews where I get paid recurring commissions for a lifetime of the deal, right? Like I get to do all those things. And then like the mastermind too, like only charging people. There's like a strict limit, there's a strict limit, and there's a strict like income cap and all that sort of stuff too. So I get the right people in, right? If not, I have all my free stuff to help you.
I think that's where our friendship aligns, is people first, profit after.
Yeah.
Versus there's like books out there that's always profit first, which is probably makes sense in real estate because you don't want to be losing money and burning money, especially if it's your own money or other people's money.
Yeah.
So I'm just sitting here thinking about it. Like that is a cool concept of having a zero cost business.
Yeah. I'm in the business of relationships at the end of the day. It's, there's one quote by George Bryant, that same guy who told me the jack of all trades, the rest of the quote. He always says relationships beat algorithms. And I always try to remember that because I'm a personal brand, right? That's my business. And I'm just like, how do I create more relationships with people out there that really, really need it, who feel alone, who are struggling, who want to get paid doing what they love. I think that's something that is like, you talk to retired people, they're always like, fuck, dude, I'm so fucking bored. Like I hate my life. Right? I don't think any of us want to live that life, but being able to do something that you love, that means something to you, it's the best feeling in the world. I want to share that with other people and make it a reality for a lot of people.
Yeah, having a true sense of fulfillment.
Yeah.
That you're actually contributing to humanity.
Yeah.
Like it goes beyond solving problems. It's just making people feel like they're worthy of something too.
It's that self-actualization part that we're talking about. Yeah.
Kind of sense that that's kind of the path that we're both headed towards.
Yeah.
Skipping everything else and only focusing on things that matter.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you dating? That's something that if girls heard that, well, depending on what kind of girls. If you're into ABGs, I don't think they understand what self-actualization is. They're just gonna be like, give me the Dior, give me the fucking Gucci, give me the red bottoms. Together. Let's go to EDC.
People ask me to go to EDC. I was like, nah, fuck that. I'd rather die, dude. Like,
take me to Mastro's. Take me to Mastro's. Pay for $500 steak dinners.
Fuck that shit.
Show me you love me.
Yeah, it's crazy though. Like, I'm telling you that, like, internal like EQ Riz is like very, very real. Like, there's been, now that I'm 35, like, dude, it's crazy. Like, the women will just like throw themselves at me these days, right? It's really crazy because.
Do you tell them you're not dating? Is that why? Is that like the opposite attracts kind of thing? It's like, hey, I'm not dating right now, so they want you even more?
Possibly, but they also see the side of like emotional safety that most other men do not provide or they cannot understand. I mean, how many other men do you know that you can talk to that can talk about attachment styles, who can talk about like, if I want to be manipulative, horoscopes? No, just kidding. I can talk about horoscopes. I can talk about like human design. I can talk about all these like different things, right? Tactful communication. And it's like, most other people can't really talk about that sort of stuff. And I think they're just really attracted to it too. And I think also the ambition. That's the one thing that I've always had going in my life is just like, you know, dating life has gone to shit. Like, financial life, up, down, right? Like,
that's the way it's going to be for a while.
Yeah, up, down. And then like, I mean, I'm always driven. I'm not going to give up, you know, and I don't care what the fuck people tell me to do. Like, I'm going to figure out a way every single time, you know, and I have been these last 5 years since I quit pharmacy.
Yeah. You know, our friendship started on the basis of porn. Do you remember that conversation? I don't know how
we're doing it right now.
I don't know how that night we got to both quitting porn, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I don't know how we got to that. That was the first time we met. Yeah. We were talking about some shit and it's just like, oh, I quit porn too. Like, you want to be friends? How did we become friends?
Yeah, I was going like super monk mode at the time and stuff like that too. And man, quitting porn is so freaking hard. It's like one of the hardest things ever.
Do you think you were addicted to porn?
I'm still addicted, honestly. Yeah. Like, I'm still addicted. I think about it. I'm just like, oh God, I can't function. It's lingering on my, like, I've quit like, actually, as of today, I quit caffeine.
As of today, why?
I just noticed myself, like, it's like those dopamine hits, right? You notice those dopamine hits. Like, porn is one of them. Yep. Another one is like social media. Social media. I was scrolling all the time recently. I'm just like, I'm avoiding something. I don't know what. Maybe it's this new transition that I'm going through. Maybe it's like this fear or anxiety or like this loneliness I'm going through. I'm coping some way. And I need to cut out the dopamine hits to figure out like what's truly going on. Right. And just sitting there.
Because you've asked me why I went hiatus, like on my hiatus on social media when I just got on social media and I took like a month and a half off. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the same thing. It's because I caught myself going back to like an old pattern of just scrolling or whatever. And it's just like, now it's very limited. It's like, I'll look at some fun dog stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just very limited because I feel like I don't have full control of myself yet.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird because I think it is an addiction too.
Social media addiction is pretty real. Like, I've been finding myself like going down like the city boys, Hoodville, like memes and stuff. So that's all the fuckboy like memes and stuff like that.
Is that what you guys were talking about? Like, you spent like 20 minutes just looking at those pages?
Yeah. It was probably me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like one of the things I saw today was like, oh, I heard you're looking for stud. I got the STD. All I need is you. It's like shit like that. It's like, what the fuck?
Oh my God.
But then I noticed myself just sending it to all my friends. But then I'm just like, dude, I'm spending awfully a lot of time on like these memes and shit. What's really going on?
Yeah.
And I noticed myself with that.
I think that was the most powerful thing that you can say to yourself is like, I'm avoiding something. What is really going on?
Yeah.
It's because most men and I think women are unaware of themselves to that level. It's because it's much easier to reach for something else that's a distraction. They don't realize is the distraction, right?
Yeah, I think that's why everybody like loves things like EDC and like loves doing the mollies and stuff like that, just because it's a chance for them to escape. But they don't realize like, that's only a 2 to 3 day that's only a 3 day event. When you come back to real life, you have to face your problems again. And it's like, man, facing those uncomfortable truths, it's not easy, you know. It's definitely not easy. And it's just like uncomfortable. And my friends are like, why the fuck would you put yourself through that? It's because like, and then in my mind, I'm like, one of the most important relationships that you have is with yourself, right? And whether you believe it or not, your beliefs will always creep in. If you don't believe that, like this happened to my business partner, right? Like his money beliefs would always bleed into business. Like he feels like he's not worthy of money if he's not working hard or sacrificing. He doesn't deserve it. So what does he do? Hey, this is really expensive. Don't worry, I'll discount. What the fuck? Let me do the sales, motherfucker. First of all, let me do the sales. First of all, shut the fuck up. But second of all, it's like he doesn't take the time to stop and notice like in himself. So how could he do it for someone else? Hey, Tawni, I noticed that there's a bit of hesitation. What's on your mind? Right? I noticed your concern with the finances. What's on your mind? Right? Listen first, right? And because he feels like he's not worth it, right? He'll always discount it because he ties his self-worth to money all the time. But what he didn't realize was he's fucking over the whole team. We have a whole paid media team and all that sort of stuff. And it's like not only fucking over yourself, you're fucking over the whole entire team. And like I think about that instance, I'm like, am I doing that to my YouTube team at all? Like, are there any beliefs that are lingering in my business that are really affecting like our communication styles, our profitability, things like that too? I think it's very important to be conscious of that. That's where like I realized like all the best entrepreneurs, they focus on personal development, self-growth. They're all into like meditation and all this other shit too, It's like for a good reason because it helps us stop and really ask what's really going on. There's a great book by Keith Cunningham. It's called The Road Less Stupid.
Yes, yeah. I was thinking that. It's a white book with red letters on the side. Yep.
Yeah, the concept is like if you're watching this and you have no idea what it is, basically the concept is all smart people do dumb things. How do you reduce the dumb things that we do? It's through thinking time. That's the concept. I'm like, we need more of that. We need to be able to like self-regulate for a bit, not get so entrenched with our emotions and just like ask what's the real problem, or like the deeper questions that we're not thinking about. What don't I see?
Yeah, I think you put a lot of things into context today, right? About how we live and especially how men live. Like I really appreciate your perspective.
Yeah.
On like there's a lot of things that are going on and men said that I don't even think they're aware of.
Probably not.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I'm sitting here, I'm trying to put myself inside those shoes on what people do on a regular basis and how they're just kind of like cruising on by and not really aware of all the things that are going on. And while you're sitting here, it's just like, what's really going on with me today?
Yeah. It's really interesting. Like, that's why I feel like all these modalities of like spending time in silence, spending time at jiu-jitsu, spending time with like by yourself sometimes, spending time with other friends sometimes too. And just nature. Like, yeah, nature as well. I don't do that much nature, to be honest with you. I'm pretty bad.
Should probably get some sunlight.
Yeah, I should probably get more sunlight, honestly.
Yeah, that's the real D, not sucking dick, okay? Just go outside and get some fucking D.
Dude, like, I just get my testosterone, like, bowl of testosterone from jiu-jitsu half the time.
You know, they say that a lot of those stems from lack of needs, from touch needs. So that's why they choose, like, more violent things, is because, one, is, like, less homophobic, but two, they get their touch needs met. It's because they're getting touched from other men, even though it is embracing and it is like really powerful. That's another way of community, right? Because you say it is a lonely world out there too.
Yeah,
that was kind of funny.
I think a lot of those things are like really, really important, especially for men. And I don't know, I feel like it's more than ever, it's like harder to be a man because like masculinity is demonized. But more recently, I've been being in more touch with my masculine, and it's been really good on my dating life too. So yeah. I don't know. It's attracting a lot of women, but I'm just like, nope, gotta stay monk mode right now. That's the priority.
Yeah. Wow. I can't wait to hear your progress of your monk mode 3 months.
Was that more than 45 minutes? We're way more than 45 minutes.
Of your monk mode.
So Tawni, how do you want to wrap this up?
Just whip it out.
Okay.
We gotta make some money, dude. Come on. No, I just want to acknowledge you for like showing up as who you truly are in your masculine, right? Embracing that feminine side that you have with all of your emotional abilities too. Because I find that that's something we need more into this world. Yeah. So I'm glad you're able to bring that out and show others that it's okay to be vulnerable with one another as a man. Yeah. So I hope that your community grows like even deeper too. And I can't wait to hear like a few months from now how your business decision from, you know, with your inbound sales going to YouTubing full time. Like, and you know, our friendship is probably going to change in the next few months too. So I can't wait for that because if we're just going to keep evolving together, right? Yeah. No contracting, no going backwards.
That's true.
Evolve, we're gotta let each other go, man.
I was going to ask, I don't want to hold the podcast up longer, but I was going to ask, how do you think our friendship's going to change over the next few months?
I feel like we can change some lives by showing how Asians' friendship, especially men and women, are perceived, right? Is because your podcast is friend zoned.
Wait, I got friend zoned? Fuck, I'm out of this fucking podcast. Fuck this shit. Yeah. For context, my podcast is named The Friend Zone. So
I think I got friend zoned. Good. High five. Yeah.
Fuck, guys. I failed. But as you're saying.
No, I think the evolution of our friendship is going to be how do we help others and keep changing lives by showing them that friendship, platonic friendships can exist within the realms of like, hey, can we do business together? How can we help each other grow? How do we keep impacting lives? And how do we keep showing up authentically as ourselves as like full emotional creatures, right? Just making our way through this world of entrepreneurship because it is a very lonely road. And not a lot of people kind of understand what it takes to be like a friend or to date someone with this kind of mentality. Yeah. So I'm excited, dude.
Dude, I appreciate it. Yeah. I'm so bummed I got friend zoned just now. But no, seriously, on a serious note, I'm very thankful that you invited me onto your podcast and stuff and just share my experiences with a new audience too. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. So thanks for listening. What is it? What is it? We gotta take that. I already forgot what I was gonna say, man. Thanks for listening. Yeah, thanks for tuning into the Fit and Frugal podcast. I am your host, Tawni Nguyen, and then you can find Kevin on YouTube.
You can find all my links at refugeehustle.com/links as my social media, my Instagram, YouTube, all that, and all my free shit too. So yeah.
Free shit. Here we go.
Okay, bye. That's what you usually say.
I don't know.